Hello, everybody, and we are in week 11. This week we're covering chapter 9, which is pro-social behavior, otherwise known as helping behavior. So in this chapter, we have a lot of concepts to cover, but let's take it one thing at a time. We have our to-do list here for the week, and I really hope that everybody is listening to these podcasts. I often give little tips and just things to pay attention to for each chapter. And so if you're not listening to the podcasts, you could be missing out on things. So hopefully you all are doing that. But here are the objectives for the chapter. You're going to notice that pro-social behavior is basically broken up into different parts. And one of those first parts is how do we respond to emergency type of situations, like who's most likely to get involved in helping someone when it comes to sort of a ambiguous situation or situation that's new to someone, something you've never encountered before, or an emergency situation where help is needed and you might not know exactly how to respond because you've never been in that situation before. So we kind of cover that. We cover some concepts that are involved in understanding how that all operates. And then it sort of moves into reasons why people do and do not help and theories as to why that is. It has a lot to do with levels of empathy. And we look at some different hypotheses, specifically 3 here: empathy altruism hypothesis, negative state relief model, and empathetic joy hypothesis. These are 3 sort of main hypotheses. We'll also be talking about kin selection theory, but particularly these 3, as we go through the discussion today, are just sort of reasons why some people choose to get involved and some people don't. So that's sort of the next part. And then the last part focuses on volunteering, which is a very different type of helping behavior. When we typically think of pro-social behavior, we think of why would someone get involved? If they see someone that's hurt or someone that needs their help, that's one thing, but what if it's just volunteering for a charitable organization or a good cause where it requires maybe your time, your effort, your energy, your money? What would cause someone to do that? And so then again, we look at some different concepts like egoism, self-interest, moral integrity, and moral hypocrisy. So this touches on a lot of elements that I feel we've covered bits and pieces of throughout the semester, especially when we talked about social cognition and social perception. So please, by all means, feel free to revisit those chapters to help in understanding some of the whys behind all of this, because again, with this class, so many concepts that we talk about are interconnected. So it really helps get an overall picture of what's happening when you're able to go back to previous material and previous chapters and integrate that in. And you may even want to do that. I highly recommend doing that when it comes to the discussion questions. If you can pull in that material from previous chapters and just why do we think the way that we think when it comes to helping people? What plays a role in that? That's going to be helpful. Here is the article reading in addition to the chapter reading for this week, along with your lecture slides. And I do have several videos here this week, but a lot of them are very short. These 2, in fact, are very, very brief. This one I think is 3 minutes. When we talk about the smoke-filled room study, it's literally a 2-minute long video. There's no sound, and you're just going to be watching what happens. Would you stop to help a child? This is a mock child abduction, and it's sort of like a what would you do scenario, where you're going to be looking at people's responses to what they think could be a child abduction. And I give you, again, questions to consider. Now, I never make these questions a part of the discussions, but as you're watching, be thinking about these things. These are going to help you develop answers to the discussion question, which is going to touch on some of these concepts. So good thing to kind of keep in mind. Here's when we get into random acts of kindness. It's a very quick clip, but this is actually attached to the extra credit that I'm giving you for this week, which we'll come to in just a minute. But you're just going to check out this clip, and it's just tied to the extra credit. And then your last video is a little bit longer. It's a 29-minute video. It is accessed through the Films on Demand database, which you all have access to via the library, the WSU Library database. You would go to Databases on Demand, and you would go to F in the A to Z database, and you would click on Films on Demand. And if you just type in the title, America the Rude, it's going to pull it up. And this explores sort of where we're at as a country, a very individualistic country, in terms of our civility. Like, why are we not helping people? What's going on? Has it gotten worse? And what role does aggression play in the whole picture? And this kind of helps preview next week's topic, which is aggression. Chapter 10 is aggression. So this will give you kind of a good preview into that. So it's just a great video. So your discussion for the week is going to, again, tie in all your readings as well as those videos. You're going to be talking about primary motivations for volunteering. And here's where you're going to actually have to do a little bit of your own legwork, a little bit of a divergence from our typical discussion postings. But I want you asking people this week that you know who volunteer. They could volunteer in any capacity to a project or a cause. I want you to ask them why they do it, and do their stated reasons match any of those motivational factors discussed in the article as well as in the readings in the chapter for why people help. Do they map on to any of those reasons talked about? Then I want you to take your knowledge of what you've gained through the readings and explain how different service organizations, mostly nonprofits, because here's where the bulk of the responsibility falls on nonprofits for helping out humanity. Explain how service organizations like those could use the research you've learned that's been presented in the article and in the readings to get people to volunteer. Like, how do you get a volunteer? And once you have them, how do you keep them coming back? Like, what are some motivations that one could give to keep those volunteers that they have? And then third, I give you guys a quote again. This one's by Edmund Burke. And I just want you sort of discussing, do you agree or disagree with his statement in terms of, good and evil and how that plays a role in whether or not we help. And this will tap into a little bit of the America the Rude video. It kind of talks about some of that a little bit. So I want you integrating that there. So that's your discussion. There's no exam this week, and I am offering the extra credit that I mentioned. So this extra credit assignment is worth 3 points. It is due next Monday. And so you have some time to do it because I wanted it to be something that's fun and something that you really look for an opportunity to do. So this extra credit involves you doing a random act of kindness. So it's tied to the little 30-second video clip that I have for you. I want you to just find a way to do something kind for someone else. Now, the drive-through difference is sort of one option for that, paying for the people behind you. That's a very simple option, and I just gave it as an example, but by all means, if you notice someone struggling around you, a stranger, a friend, a neighbor, anyone, and you find the opportunity to help, or maybe you actually keep your eyes a little more open this week and look for an opportunity to help, that's what I want you looking for this week and then writing about. And you're simply just going to tell me, what is it you did? Who did you help? How did it make you feel? And were you there for the person's reaction? If you were, tell me about that. So you're just going to be submitting that via this assignment link, this extra credit link. If you click on it, you can type in your response and submit it to me, and that will give you a chance at that extra credit. So that pretty much sums up the week. Please let me know, again, if you have any questions or need help with anything. I'd be glad to help you. Thanks, everybody.